Visible with liberty and justice for all. The prayer this morning will be offered by the gentlelady from Baltimore City.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Good morning, colleagues. As we begin a day of work, I offer a prayer of generosity. Dear Lord, teach us to be generous. Teach us to serve you as you deserve, to serve others as we serve you, to give and not to count the cost, to fight and not to heed the wounds, to toil and not to seek for rest, to labor and not to seek reward, except that of knowing that we do your will. And the people say, amen.
Amen. Quorum call.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their presence? If so, the clerk will take the call. There being 125 members present, the House is now in session. The clerk will read the journal from the previous day.
Annapolis, Maryland, March the 1st, 2022.
Recognizing in Deputy Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So much be considered the reading of the journal.
So ordered, petition, memorials, and other papers. Message from the Senate. Senate bills introduced in the House. The clerk will read the bills and committee assignments.
Senate Bill 4, Senator Hester, Appropriations. Senate Bill 392, the President, Judiciary, by order of Sylvia Seeger, Chief Clerk.
Report of the Committee on Appropriations. Report number 4. The clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 540, Agricultural, University of Maryland Extension, Urban Farmer Assistance, favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill as to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 566, School Construction Design Documents, Waste Disposal Infrastructure, favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill as to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 740, State Retirement and Pension System, Investment Climate Risk, Fiduciary Duties, favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill as to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading.
Madam Speaker.
Gentleman for Anne Arundel.
Will the floor leader please rise on this bill for a couple questions?
Yes, certainly. Good morning.
This looks
Leader.
like a pretty complex bill, and obviously it pertains to many of us sitting in here and many other workers in the state. Do you mind if we special order this until the appropriate time tomorrow for a possible
Certainly.
amendment?
That's fine.
Thank you very much.
Not a problem.
You were late getting up, and I had already ordered it to pass for third reading, so.
Madam Speaker, we have a motion to bring it back to second reader.
Yes. Go ahead. Go ahead. Make your motion.
I'd like the motion to bring that back to second reading, Madam Speaker.
Second reading. Question for the House is to bring the HB 740 back to second reading. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'd like to special order this bill and the appropriate time tomorrow for a possible amendment.
Floor Leader.
That is fine.
Deja vu. Thank you very
No problem.
much.
Question for the House is a special order HB 740 to the appropriate time tomorrow. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Bill has been special ordered. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 1086, Opioid Restitution Fund, appropriation of settlement funds and grant program, favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Report of the Committee on Appropriations, report number 5. Clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 111, action to collect a private education loan, required documents, favorable amendments, amendment number 1.
Madam Speaker,
Recognizing the floor leader.
move so much be considered the reading of the amendment.
So ordered.
Amendment number 1 is technical. Move the amendment.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendment is adopted. Question now is the adoption of favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 456, Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, State Supplement, favorable amendments, amendment number 1.
Recognizing the subcommittee chair.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much be the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
Amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 2 strikes the alteration to the age eligibility and reduces the allotment to $40. Move the amendments.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendment is adopted. Question now is the adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 542, State Retirement and Pension System Investment Committee, use of minority business enterprises, diversity among asset managers Act of 2022. Favorable amendments, amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much be considered the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
The first amendment is technical. The second strikes the new statutory language, and the third requires the Board of Public Works and the Governor's Office of Small, Minority, and Women Business Affairs to study diversity among our state retirement and pension system assets. Please move the amendments.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendment has been adopted. The question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill
Madam Speaker.
is ordered. Gentleman from St. Mary's.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Can the floor leader please rise for a
Floor
couple
leader.
questions on this?
Happily.
Can you explain this bill real quick to the body?
Sure thing. So the bill came in originally requiring our state pension system to leverage at least 20% of our managed assets with MBEs. The bill has since been amended to require a disparity study to be done first before establishing a goal. And the purpose of the bill is, as we are having this national conversation around racial equity and inclusion, to make sure we are using all the resources at our disposal to address the racial wealth gap and things of that nature. So the amendments require a disparity study before any goals can be established.
So I got a quick question on the process. How does a state select an asset manager?
Sorry, can you restate the question?
So real quick, how does the state select an asset manager to manage its portfolio?
There's a selection committee that has a process of interviewing folks to see if they have the requisite skills and ability. The investment committee of the agency reviews applicants who want to manage the funds. So that's the process in which they go through.
Okay. I remember a few years ago, I remember back in like 2008, I believe, that these actual management fees on the pension fund was actually capped. And then it went uncapped right around the 2008, 2009 time frame. Can you tell me actually about, just approximate, I don't expect you to know this off the top of your head, how much do we pay in management fees per year onto the pension system?
Yeah, I do not know. My bill has nothing to do with management fees.
Well, it has to deal with selecting the people that are going to manage the fund, so I would accept it. I would think they would get paid for it. Do you mind if we just special order this and I'll take a look at it to the appropriate time tomorrow? I'd be good with that.
That's fine, Madam Speaker.
Question
Thank you.
for the House
Appreciate
is
it.
the special order
Thank you, Madam
HB
Speaker.
542 to the appropriate times tomorrow. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Bill has been special order. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 598, Higher Education Transfer Platform Established, Transfer with the Success Act 2.0. Favor of the amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much be considered the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
Amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 2 makes changes around participation in the transfer platform, control over the transfer platform, and contents of the transfer platform. The amendment also strikes the mandated appropriation. Move the amendments.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendment has been adopted. Question now is adoption of the favorable report as amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 763, Correctional Officers Retirement System Membership. Favor of the amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Be so much considered the reading of the amendment.
So ordered.
The amendment corrects a drafting error and specifies the DJS employee classifications that will be added to the membership of the Correctional Officers Retirement System. Move the amendment.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendment has been adopted. The question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 909, Maryland Teachers and State Employee Supplemental Retirement Plans, Use of Minority Business Enterprises. Favor of the amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Be so much considered the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
Amendment 1 is technical. Amendment 2 requires that the Board of the Maryland Supplemental Retirement Plan use the state's electronic procurement system to provide notice about minority business enterprise opportunities. Move the amendments.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendment has been adopted. Question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Report of the Committee on Environment and Transportation, report number 5. Clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 10, Maryland Transit Administration Conversion to Zero-Emission Buses, Zero-Emission Bus Transition Act revisions. Favor of the amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much be considered the reading of the amendment.
So ordered.
The amendment simply adds sponsors. Move the amendment.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendment has been adopted. Question now is the adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read next bill.
House Bill 18, Maryland Paint Stewardship. Favor of the amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Be so much consider the reading of the amendment.
So ordered.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The amendment adds sponsors. Move the amendment.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have
Madam
it. The amendment,
Speaker.
I see you. Let me
Thank
finish
you.
what I got to say, please, okay? Thank you. The ayes have it. The amendment is adopted. Question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill to a title? Recognizing gentlelady from Baltimore County and Harvard.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I was not trying to be rude. I just didn't want you to miss me standing back here in the back of the room. Floor Leader, would you yield for some questions, please?
Of course.
Thank you. I noticed that the bill, reading the reprint, says that there will be at least 90% of the residents of the state shall have a collection site within 15 miles.
That is correct. It said that last year and the year before.
So have you taken into account the very rural parts of our state? I mean, 15 miles isn't very far.
That's why it says 90%.
So you think 10% of our state lives in places where we have something 15 miles or further away?
Well,
how did you determine the 15?
Thank you. So currently, most jurisdictions have a household hazardous waste day, and they do it on their own, and they do it per their own resources. Not everyone has those collections as well.
So tell me again, who's doing it now currently? I know Baltimore County is. Are the counties doing it? Are paint supply stores, who's currently doing it?
Usually the local jurisdictions. For instance, Baltimore City does it. I'm sure Baltimore County has a day per their Department of Public Works. Most folks have it. Actually, I have a list I can read through for you.
You could
does it in how many days per year that they actually do it.
Baltimore County has it every day. If you go up to the Texas landfill, you can drop off a 5-gallon bucket of old paint per time you go up there. So as you just said that all of our local jurisdictions are currently doing it, then why do we need this bill?
Because it's been done for 10 years across the country. 2, it helps eliminate paint that is otherwise incinerated or landfilled to have a second life of reuse. Reuse for people to actually reuse it, people to actually use it to make other paints, and then for the very small percentage of those paints that are actually trash, they can be appropriately incinerated. So this is keeping a large amount of paint that is actually in good use from going into the garbage.
Okay, thank you so much. And tell us what the fee is going to be and who's going to pay.
I can't tell you the fee because the fee is determined by the volume of paint that will be sold in the state, and that will be determined once this bill is passed and once the plan for the organization is created.
So what's the guesstimate? You have to think, I mean, the
guesstimate is that that will be determined based on the volume of paint sold in Maryland. So in the other jurisdictions across the country, it ranges anywhere from 10 cents for maybe a pint or more to up to and it could be up to 75 cents per gallon, but that is undetermined because we don't know. But it is per gallon. So 5 gallons is going to be different from a gallon, different from up to more than a pint.
Okay, and you didn't decide to put a cap on it. You just said have at it, however much you think it should be.
I guess the question back would be: is there a thought that it would be more than the average cost?
Yeah, I mean, generally speaking, you're asking a non-governmental, unelected body to determine fees for citizens. I'm surprised that you didn't think.
Well, here's the cap that I think you'll like is that the fees collected that must pay for the program cannot make a profit. So it has to be a wash every year, and every year there will be a report issued, and there will be an independent audit done to make that determines that. Yes.
Yeah, I'm still not sure there's enough guardrails on the program that it didn't need a cap. But I would like to special order this for purposes of an amendment for sometime tomorrow, please.
Sure.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The question Before the House is to special order HB 18 to the appropriate time tomorrow. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The bill has been special ordered. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 133, Environment Coal Tar Sealant Products Prohibition Safer Sealant Act of 2022. In favor of the amendments, amendment number 1.
Recognizing the Vice Chair of the committee.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So much be considered the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
The bill summary is, as amended, this bill prohibits the use and sale of high PAH sealant products that are applied to driveways and parking areas. Amendment number 1 adds co-sponsors and makes technical changes. Number 2 removes references to coal tar, provides an exemption for airports, federal facilities, and military facilities, removes language relating to labeling standards, and clarifies that an administrative penalty may be imposed. Move the amendments, Madam Speaker.
The question for the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendments have been adopted. The question now is the adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 231, Montgomery County Automated Traffic Enforcement Implementing Agency. Favorable.
The question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 368, Vehicle Laws, Penalties for Lapse of Security, Transferred Certificate of Title, Motor Vehicle Registration Clarification Act. Favor of the amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much be considered the reading of the amendment.
So ordered.
The amendment adds circumstances under which the MVA is prohibited from assessing a penalty or lapse for terminated securities. Move the amendment.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendment has been adopted. The question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 679, Vehicle Laws, Licensing of Businesses and Occupations, Definition of Vehicle Salesman. Favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 713, Vehicle Laws, Horse Riding, Helmet Requirement for Minors. Favor of the amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much be considered the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
Amendment number 1 alters the application of the bill. Amendment number 2 strikes specific penalties. And amendment number 3 requires that a police officer provide certain educational materials. Strikes. The police officer requires certain educational materials. Move the amendments.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify
Speaker.
by saying aye. I see you. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendment has been adopted. Recognizing the gentleman from Frederick. Excuse me?
Anne Arundel. Oh.
Excuse me. The question now is the adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Gentleman from Frederick.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I have a quick question for the floor leader. Does this bill impact 4-H competitions where there's Western riding?
No, it does not.
So when would this bill apply for citing an adult for allowing a child to wear maybe a cowboy hat riding a horse rather than a helmet?
When they're on a recreational ride on public land, or when they are on a trail on public land.
So it's a
It would
public...
not, if they're in a competition, it would not.
Okay.
It would not.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
Gentleman from Anne Arundel.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So sometimes in our districts we have all these festivals where kids can ride the ponies and donkeys and mules. Does that apply to all that as well?
Yes, it does.
So it applies anywhere, no matter what you're riding, correct?
No, that is not.
As long
That
as
is
it's on
not
public
correct.
land?
No, that is not correct. If there's a competition, then it does not apply.
No, I'm not saying it's a competition. It's just when you go to these festivals and they have those little pony rides. Do they have to wear helmets now?
Yeah, yes, they have to wear a helmet.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Sure. Thank you.
Gentleman from Western Maryland, Garrett.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Floor Leader, does this apply to riding academies or private ranches and businesses that book horse riding and trail rides and that sort? Does it apply to all those also?
Just for private, not for private property.
This is only on public lands.
Correct.
So this doesn't apply to anything if I'm a farmer and I have a horse and I want to ride my horse, and the kids don't have to have a helmet on?
It doesn't apply for private property.
Yeah.
Unless it is open to the
Okay.
public.
Okay.
So.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you.
Are there any additional? The gentleman from Frederick.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Another quick clarity. I heard originally you said only applies to public lands. This is also a private property bill. If it's open to the public, that would include competitions? Is that like barrel racing and those kinds of events?
No, it does not include competition. To be very clear, it does not include competition. There was ample discussion in subcommittee. I lost, but it does not include public land. I mean, it does not include a competition. So you do not have to worry about competition, barrel racing,
okay,
jumping.
Thank you.
Sure.
Madam Speaker,
Young lady from Carroll.
I'm just trying to get my arms around what this does. Would this apply to a fire department carnival where they have the ponies or the horses and they walk them around the little circle with kids?
Yes, only for children.
So, I mean, I know what the law rule is here, but is there any evidence to support that those kind of things are really harmful to kids and there's been any accidents with kids walking around in a circle? Because I'm trying to think of who's going to provide the helmets, and it's just an obstacle to having a fun thing for kids at a fire department carnival, which we do all the time. So is there any evidence to support that for those types of rides there's been kids falling off the ponies that are being walked around?
So what I would say is I don't know of any direct evidence, but the simple fact of the matter is that if you put anyone on a horse or on a pony and they fall off, there's a very obvious opportunity for a head injury, and a simple, very inexpensive helmet can prevent that.
Well, I understand, but like when you go to these places, you don't really think I'm going to take my helmet with me because I'm going to ride around on a pony. And I was thinking about sliding boards. We have sliding boards everywhere. Not that I'm looking for a bill for sliding boards, but do we require a kid when they climb up the sliding board to wear a helmet because they might fall off the sliding board? I'm looking for, I always say, what's the problem we're trying to solve? And for my county where we have this small little, kids walk around, they're led by someone, they're 3, 4 years old. My grandkids love it. I can't imagine who's going to provide these helmets and what the risk is to that. And it is on public land, and public is invited because they're at our carnivals. And I'm just thinking what an obstacle that may be to having these types of rides anymore. And I'm trying to figure out what's the problem we're trying to solve. What's the injury rate of those types of activities?
I mean, I don't have specific data, but I think it's pretty obvious that if you think about what's going on around. So we do have committee staff who have family members that have fallen off horses and almost died.
Wow, okay.
So-
Again, I think this is a interesting issue that is really a problem that's not a true problem, but it's a little bit broad, but thank you very much.
Madam Speaker.
Gentleman from Talbot.
Yeah, just a quick question. I'm not against the concept. I
Sure,
appreciate
absolutely,
the
Delegate.
sincerity. And
Good morning.
actually, I lost a good friend from a horse riding accident. Just with the bill, who enforces this?
Police would enforce this.
So it would be your health department, natural resources police, state police, county
It
police?
would be more like local, county, state, DNR police, that kind of thing.
And what's the penalty?
The penalty is, yeah, it's a $500 fine. It's a maximum fine.
Is there a warning?
That's up to that police officer. If that police officer decides that they want to make it a warning, they can make it a warning.
I'm not going to special order. Thank you for answering those
Okay,
questions.
thank you.
Are there any gentleman from Anne Arundel?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. After looking at this bill, I appreciate the intent of the bill, and I think it's all about safety. But would it be possible to special order it for purpose amendment?
Yeah, sure.
Thank you.
Better be one good amendment.
Just want to exempt ponies.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Question for the House is to special order HB 713 to the appropriate time tomorrow. All in favor signify by saying aye. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? No. The ayes have it. The bill has been special ordered until the appropriate time tomorrow. Report of the Committee on Environment and Transportation, report number 6. Clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 22, Animal Welfare, Declawing Cats, Prohibited Acts. Favor of the amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the chairman of the committee.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much be considered the reading of amendments. Amendment
So
number
ordered.
1 is technical. Amendment number 2 strikes language requiring the State Board of Veterinary Medical Examiners to suspend or revoke the license of a veterinary doctor who fails to comply with the bill, and instead merely authorizes the board at their discretion to do so. Move the amendments.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendments are adopted. Question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 40, Condominiums, Disclosures to Unit Owners and Prohibited Provisions in Instruments. Favor of the amendments. Amendment
Madam
number 1.
Speaker.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much be the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
As amended, this bill clarifies that the Board of Directors of a condominium may not withhold or agree to withhold from the unit owners the terms of legal agreements to which the Council of Unit Owners is a party. Additionally, the bill establishes enhanced disclosure standards for agreements on the impact of unit owners and condominiums. For the purchases of units in a condominium, the bill only applies to declarations, bylaws, instructions recorded or executed after October 1st, 2020. Amendment number 1 makes technical changes. Amendment number 2 requires certain disclosures to the Council of Unit Owners and members of the buying public if the Board of Directors of the Council of Unit Owners enters into an agreement that settles or releases claims related to common elements. Move the amendments, Madam Speaker.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendments are adopted. Question now is the adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 52, Natural Resources, Wildlife Trafficking Prevention. Favor of the amendments. Amendment number 1.
Madam Speaker.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Madam Speaker, move so much
ordered.
be the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
As amended, House Bill 52 prohibits a person from purchasing, selling, offering for sale, or intending to sell a covered animal species, part, or product. Amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 2 alters the exceptions and application of the prohibition. Move the amendments.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendments have been adopted. Question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read next bill.
House Bill 59, Ethics, Local Governments, Registration of Lobbyists. Favor of the amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much be considered the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
With the committee amendments harmonize local lobbying activity requiring local registration with state lobbying activity requiring state registration. Move the amendments.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Amendments have been adopted. The question now is the adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 71, Manufactured Homes, Conversion to Real Property and Sale of Manufacturing Housing Communities, Manufactured Housing Modernization Act. Favor the amendments. Amendment number 1.
Madam Speaker.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much be considered the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
Amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 2 strikes provisions of the bill that makes changes to the processes of conversion of manufactured homes from personal to real property. And amendment number 3 alters the provisions related to the sale of manufactured home communities. Move the amendments.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendments have been adopted. The question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Gentleman from the Eastern Shore.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Could the floor leader rise for a question on the bill?
With pleasure.
So what is the bill trying to fix? I'm trying to read the bill and not sure why it's here and what you're trying to do with it.
Totally. I appreciate the question. Well, basically, it's trying to give residents of manufactured or mobile home communities a little bit more notice before the owners of their community sell the community to someone else. The idea here is that more so than any other Marylander, residents of these communities have very little notice, really only 30 days before the sale of the community, before they may have to move. They own this piece of property. Sometimes it costs $20,000 to move their manufactured home to another community if there's space. So this bill is trying to provide a little bit more notice so that these folks can be treated with a little bit more dignity, a little bit more fairness, and I'll note there's no opposition to the bill.
Okay. Madam Speaker, I think the minority leader might have had a question or two. I might stand up after that.
I did.
Recognizing the minority leaders, since you've been asked to stand up.
Thank you. So the question I had from my friend from Montgomery County, I read the bill originally, and then you talked about there's an amendment for ownership. I have to be honest with you. I've actually represented entities that have entered into these transactions both in Maryland and in other states, and they're fairly complicated. The original provisions of the bill talked about before you could complete the transaction where you would sell the mobile home park, you would have to offer it for sale to the individual, I'll just call them unit holders, because there's a difference in parlance. Oftentimes they don't actually own the land, sometimes they don't even own the units. Is that still in the bill so that if I sell, I have to say, hey, I have 350 units in my park, and I have to offer it to all 350 unit holders? That's been amended or changed?
No, it's been amended. As amended, essentially what it does is the owner of the community, 60 days prior to the finalization of an agreement with a third party. So, but usually, as you probably know from doing these deals, there's usually a preliminary agreement before a final deal. So 60 days before the final, ink is on the dotted line, you've got to provide notice to the members of the community that this sale might go through. And they do have an opportunity under the bill, even as amended, if they band together, they have to jump through a lot of hoops. It has to be 51% of the owners forming an organization of which there has to be unanimity that they can offer to purchase the community if they so desire. The only requirement on the community owner is that they consider the offer, but that's it. Basically, they got to read the offer, and that's their only obligation under the bill.
So the alleged purchasing entity or the homeowners would have to form a group. Let's just call it a homeowners association, even though that may not be its legal terminology.
Yeah,
the organization. Would that organization have to have been formed prior to the sale offer, or is that something that they would do sort of, sua sponte, based upon, hey, there's this offer, now we're going to go out and form a group?
Yeah, it's a great question. Technically, they would not have to have formed the group prior to getting the notice. However, from talking with some of the stakeholders here, if it hasn't already been formed, 60 days is generally not enough time to form an organization and put an offer together.
Yeah, I think
so
that's fair.
usually you would see situations where a pre-existing organization is putting together an offer.
Yeah, I mean, there's very different kinds. I've done this in 4 different states now. There's very different types of mobile home parks. There are some that are very oriented towards retiree communities that are very well established that may have this. There are others that are more transient for people that are in and out fairly rapidly based upon their
I'm from
personal
Alabama,
circumstances.
so
I've
breathed
trailer
it all
parks?
in. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you for your questions. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Madam Speaker.
Gentleman from the Eastern Shore.
Madam Speaker, can we special order the bill so I can take a look at it and maybe offer an amendment?
No objections here, Madam Speaker.
What do you say? I didn't hear what you said.
I have no objection to the special order. Thank you.
Question for the House is to special order HB 71 to the appropriate time tomorrow. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The bill has been special ordered until the appropriate time tomorrow. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 221, Natural Resources, Healing, Hunting, and Fishing Fund, no-cost licenses and stamps, favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered, printed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 558, Land Use, Agritourism, definition, favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered, printed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 716, Patuxent River Commission membership, favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Move so much be considered the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
Madam Speaker, the committee amendments add one member, representative of the University of Maryland Center for Environmental Science to the commission. Move the amendment.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendment has been adopted. The question now is the adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered, printed for third reading. Report of the Committee on Health and Government Operations, report number 4. Clerk, read the first bill.
House Bill 229, Pharmacist, Administration of Maintenance, Injectable Medication, Treatment of Sexually Transmitted Infections, favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much be considered the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
Amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 2 and 3 define injectable medication for treatment of STI for the purposes of authorizing pharmacists to administer the medications and requiring certain carriers and Medicaid to provide coverage for the administration of the medication by the pharmacist as is currently done for maintenance injectable medications. Move the amendments.
The question before the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendments have been adopted. The question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered, printed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 245, Program for Preventing HIV Infection for Rape Victims, Alterations and Repeal of Sunset, favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the Vice Chair of the Committee.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Good morning.
Good morning.
Move so much be consider the reading of the amendment.
So ordered.
Amendment number 1 adds sponsors. Move the amendment.
The question for the House is the adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Amendments have been adopted. The question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered, printed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 275, Environment, PFAS Chemicals, Prohibitions and Requirements, George Walter Taylor Act, favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the Vice Chair of the Committee.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much be considered the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
Thank you. Amendment number 1 makes technical changes. Amendment number 2 alters the definition of PFAS chemical to clarify that the bill applies to PFAS chemicals used in firefighting agents, firefighting equipment, food packaging, and rugs and carpets. It also defines terminal, requires the Maryland Department of Health to adopt certain regulations, extends the implementation date for the prohibition on the use, manufacture, or sale of Class B firefighting foam, food packaging, and rugs and carpets to January 1st, 2024, authorizes the use of Class B firefighting foam under certain circumstances, requires the Maryland Department of Health to purchase Class B firefighting from a fire department on request of the fire department, alters the definition of food package, and strikes distributors from certain provisions of the bill. Move the amendment, Madam Speaker.
The question for the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Amendments have been adopted. The question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there gentlemen from Colorado?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I just have a couple of questions. Does this apply to military installations?
It applies to the following. The bill applies to firefighting foam, food packaging, rugs and carpets, and firefighting equipment only. It also requires notification of PFAS in firefighting gear and prevents the mass disposal of PFAS chemical by incineration and landfilling. It actually exempts the airports.
It extends to the Air Force, you said?
It exempts them.
It exempts the Air Force. So that probably means it exempts the Navy as well?
Yes.
Got it. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Are there any additional amendments to the bill as to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 353, Maryland Healthcare Commission User Fee Assessments, favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill as to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 378, Maryland Healthcare Commission Palliative Care Services Work Group, favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 389, Procurement Minority Business Enterprises Revisions, favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. These amendments are numerous, but they implement the recommendations of a DLS task force on the program, the Minority Business Enterprise Program. Amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 2 removes language from the bill that would have required agencies to consider prime contractors' past performance with respect to MB contract goals in assessing responsibility of the bidder or offerer. Removes language from the bill that would have allowed graduated MBEs to maintain MBE certification if they serve as effective mentors. Removes language from the bill that would have required GOSPA to establish statewide goals by industry type and instead require industry type categorization in certain circumstances. Retains the option for procurement officers to assess liquidated damages for failure to comply with program requirements, and requires that the Ombudsman train procurement officers on the use of these damages. Requires GOSBA and the Office of State Procurement in consultation with OAG and BPW to adopt by regulation criteria to determine that a prime contractor has persistently failed to meet contract goals. It allows MBEs, DBEs, and SBEs that meet the definition of small business to participate in the small business reserve without separate registration. Clarifies that the Ombudsman created in the bill will work to assist procurement officers in mediating disputes. And then amendment number 3 requires that the Ombudsman report on staffing levels, requires they report on the use of liquidated damages by procurement officers, and requires the submission of a follow-up report by DLS on the implementation of recommendations revising the MBE program. Move the amendments.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendments have been adopted. The question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 510, Healthcare Facilities Health Services Cost Review Commission User Fee Assessment. Favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
There is only one amendment to this bill, Madam Speaker. The amendment.
So much be considered.
So much considered. The amendment sunset the user fee methodology of the bill on June 30, 2025, and provide that the user fee cap as of July 1, 2025 may not exceed the average of the user fee amounts for the 3 prior fiscal years. Move the amendments.
So ordered. The question before the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 636, Maryland Healthcare Commission Assisted Living Program Study, favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 669, Maryland Medical Assistance Program, Dual Services Coverage, favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing Vice Chair of the Committee.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much we consider the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
Amendment number 1 adds sponsors. Amendment number 2 clarifies that doulas provide non-clinical services, provides that doulas supplement the services of healthcare providers and provide prenatal coaching instead of prenatal counseling, replaces the term medically necessary with medically indicated, provides that the bill does not limit the authority of the HSCRC to set hospital rates, and strikes the requirement that the MCOs provide home visiting services. I move the amendments, Madam Speaker.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendments have been adopted. The question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 820, Health Insurance, Pediatric, Autoimmune, Neuropsychiatric Disorders, Modifications of Coverage Requirements, favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 937, Abortion Care Access Act, favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much be considered the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
Amendment number 1 adds sponsors and makes technical changes. Amendment number 2 requires the clinical training program to establish training requirements for the provision of culturally congruent care and include implicit bias training, retains current law related to parental notice requirements, establishes requirements regarding how an insurer as well as Medicaid must cover services, requires last dollar coverage program from the Maryland Health Benefit Exchange, adopts regulations for the state-based young adult health insurance pilot program, requires a work group on consumer information and specified reports. Move the amendments.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed,
Madam
no.
Speaker.
The ayes have it. The amendment is
Madam
adopted.
Speaker.
I see you. I have to finish this first, okay? I see you. I saw you when you
Just want
first
to make
got
sure.
up. I saw you, okay. The question now is the adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Recognizing the gentle lady from Carroll.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Would like to request a special order of this bill to the appropriate time tomorrow for the purpose of amendment, please.
Absolutely, and I would just request of the members of the body that anybody who has an amendment, make sure to get that to the committee if possible. We would appreciate that courtesy. Thank you.
Thank you.
Question for the House is the special order HB 937 to the appropriate time tomorrow. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The bill has been special ordered. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 1171, Declaration of Rights, Right to Reproductive Liberty, favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? No. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none,
Madam
the bill
Speaker.
is ordered. Gentleman from Washington, come.
Thank you. I'd like to ask the floor leader a question, please.
Sure.
Thank you. I would like to special order this for tomorrow. If you could, I'd like to offer an amendment.
Is it time for that now? I thought we needed, okay. No, yes, absolutely. We definitely would appreciate the opportunity to give you guys the opportunity to special order this, and same as I said previously, any amendments, please get them to the committee. Thank you so much.
Certainly. Thank you.
question before the House is Special Order HB 1171 to the appropriate time tomorrow. For the Committee on Judiciary, report number 6. Clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 369, marriage records, name change. Favor of the amendments. Amendment number 1.
Madam Speaker,
Recognizing the floor leader.
thank you. Please so much be considered the reading of the amendment.
So ordered.
The amendment allows for the marriage record to be changed electronically. Please move the amendment.
Question before the House is the adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendment has been adopted. Question now to adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill to its title? Recognizing the gentleman from Culver.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you for recognizing me. I do have a question for the floor leader, please. So my question is, this bill is entitled House Bill 369, Marriage Records Name Change. Can you explain to me what that means? I've kind of read the bill, but I'm not entirely sure I understand it.
Sure. What this bill does is simply allows the clerks of the court a pathway to make name changes during marriages.
So the name changes, you're talking about first name, last name?
I'm talking about the entire name as requested by someone that wants a name change.
So could there be a pronoun as part of the name change? Like Mr. and Mrs. or?
Well, usually on marriage licenses, you do not see that. You just see the name of the individual.
But could that be the case?
I do not know whether that could be the case, but normally you do not see that.
So, because I guess the concern is, you know, we see a lot of these pronouns of their and their, which are not, of course, scientifically accurate. And I'm just curious if that's part of what could be put on this.
Usually,
I hear some concerns, Madam Speaker. I mean, it's kind of interesting that anyone would think that that's not so, but go ahead.
Usually, you do not see pronouns in a marriage license or any other type of document, including a driver's license.
So what problem is the bill trying to fix then?
The problem is that clerks are not able to make name changes. They do not know how to do that during the marriage process. And that is what this bill simply does.
So the bill is retroactively changing. In other words, you're married and then you retroactively change your name after you've already had your marriage license issued?
You can do that. That is correct.
That's the purpose of the bill?
That is what the bill does.
Would it be okay if I took a look at this and special ordered this? Would that be okay with you?
Yes, that is fine.
I really appreciate it. Thank you. So, Madam Speaker, I move to special order this bill.
Question for the House is Special Order HB 369 to the appropriate time tomorrow. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The bill has been special ordered. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 481, drug paraphernalia for administration, decriminalization. Favor of the amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the Vice Chair of the Committee.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much be considered the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
Amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 2 repeals the prohibition on delivering, selling, manufacturing, possession, paraphernalia to inject, ingest, inhale, and it puts it in the posture we passed it last year. Move the amendments.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendments have been adopted. The question now is the adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 645, hate crimes, false statement to a law enforcement officer. Favor of the amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing Vice Chair of the Committee.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much be considered the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
The amendment adds the whole text of Criminal Law 9501, which criminalizes false reports to the police. Move the amendment.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Amendments have been adopted. Question now is the adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 764, Department of Human Services, Missing Individuals Reporting. In favor of the amendments. Amendment number 1.
Chair of the committee.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much be the reading of amendments.
So ordered.
Amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 2 limits the bill to children and out-of-home placements, requires the report to be made immediately, authorizes either the department or the local Department of Social Services to make the report, and authorizes the department to adopt regulations to implement a bill. Move the amendment.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? No. The ayes have it. The amendments have been adopted. Question now is the adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? No. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read next.
House Bill 824, Landlord and Tenant Eviction Data Collection and Distribution. In favor of the amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Madam Speaker, please move consideration and reading of the amendments.
So order.
Amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 2 alters how often the Maryland Judiciary must report certain eviction data to DHCD from every 2 weeks to monthly, and adds an agency of a county or municipal corporation to the list of those who may request certain eviction data. So be considered the reading of the amendments.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? No. The ayes have it. The amendment is adopted. The question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? No. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Recognizing the gentlelady from Baltimore County.
Thank you. I think we're getting in the groove. Thank you so much.
I hope so.
Floor leader, please rise for some questions.
Sure.
Can you tell us exactly what data is collected here?
Sure, absolutely. So basically, this bill is just collecting, compiling shared eviction data that is collected by the courts. This would include county, zip code, census tract of the subject premises, date of the execution of the warrant of the writ, and the type of action from which the warrant or the writ is issued.
So does it include data that would tell a person when the first court action was taken and then when the eviction actually occurred?
It would include when the action occurred after the fact. So this is after the fact information that is being supplied to the department.
So to the department is supplied, so there was a landlord made a court, a landlord went to court and said the rent has not been paid on April 1st. That
Right.
would show up in the data. And then also in the data would show July 1st, the person was evicted.
It would just simply show the date of the execution of the warrant of the writ. It wouldn't show when they stopped paying the rent or anything like that, but it would show when the landlord filed the writ with the court.
So there would be no way to determine how long a person, how long it takes to evict someone.
It doesn't go into how far behind the person was in the payment of their rent. It would just simply show the data that's collected by the Judiciary, which is the date in which the writ was filed with the court by the landlord.
What is the purpose of this data collection?
The purpose of the data collection is just so that we will have a better understanding of really what's going on with our judicial system, so that we will know the number of evictions that are occurring, really county by county, and like I said, per census tract. And so it'll just allow us as a community, as a state, to just have this information so that we are aware of this information. And, you know, if anyone wants to make any analysis of this information, they have the ability to do so, including our county and local municipal governments.
So does the data also include the filing, the reason for filing, like failure to pay rent, or?
No, the data collected does not include the reason for the it's presumed that they failed to pay rent, hence filing the writ of execution. So that's presumed by simply the filing of the writ, but it doesn't go into detail. But you can always go to the courthouse and pull the actual file and get that detailed information from the actual file currently.
This is going to be collected and made public for all of us to look at, or is it just?
Just the 3 things that I stated would be made public for anyone to go to the department's website to view.
And where was Maryland Multi-Housing on this bill?
Actually, Maryland Multi-Housing on this particular bill, I think they were pretty much okay.
I think I read favorable with amendments. Did
Yes,
you take
and,
their
and
amendment?
hence the amendments that were read did address some of the concerns that were raised by them as well as MML and MACO.
And I noticed the judiciary was opposed. Are they still opposed?
The judiciary is much better with the bill. They had a concern with the initial 2-week period that was initially in the bill, which is why we amended it to a 1-month period. The judiciary believes that a 1-month period is something that they can sustain for right now, especially because all of the jurisdictions are not currently on MDAC, the electronic court filing system. And so we can always revisit this in a couple of years once all of the counties and jurisdictions are online. But given kind of the paper limitations that we have with some of our local jurisdictions, they felt that the 1-month period was sufficient.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you, Floor Leader, for answering my question.
Thank you.
Master.
Gentleman from the Eastern Shore.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Floor Leader, please rise for a question.
Sure.
Just one additional one and follow up. So there is this period of time where you get the court action, and then the day of the eviction, and say a tenant pays the past due rent, they're not actually being evicted. I would suggest that happens fairly often, in so much as once somebody realizes that they're this close to losing their home, that they'll find a way to pay the back due rent. So is this bill collecting that data, which I think happens fairly often?
Yeah, it does. It does state the type of action from which the warrant or writ was issued. So if it gets, dismissed because now the person has gone and paid, that would be reflected.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any additional amendments to the bill to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for 3rd reading.
Madam Speaker.
Recognizing the parliamentarian.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Colleagues, just a friendly reminder for everyone, particularly when we are in second reader. If you wish to offer an amendment, the Speaker is going to adopt the report. She will then say, are there any changes or additional amendments to the bill or to its title? She will ask us, and that's your moment to stand up and ask to be recognized by the Speaker. So if you wait for her prompt, we don't have to interrupt the Speaker. We can wait for her prompt, and that is when you can be recognized to offer your amendment or ask your question. So just a friendly reminder for everyone. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. Report of the Committee on Judiciary. Report number 7. Clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 425, Public Safety, Untraceable Firearms, favorable.
The question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill as to its title? Recognizing the minority leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'd like to request from the committee chair or the floor leader if we could potentially special order this bill until Thursday if possible. And one of the reasons for doing that is, as we've seen, we have quite a few special orders for tomorrow's session, some of them on a very significant, contentious topic that I think will take up a lot of our time. And in the interest of that, I was hoping that we could special order for amendments on this bill, which there might be several, until Thursday.
Committee Chair.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'm amenable to a special order until the appropriate time tomorrow. I think that we deal with a lot of contentious issues in this chair, and we come from the land of the Judiciary Committee of contentious issues. So we're used to long days, and we're going to inflict one on all of you, it looks like. So but I think that tomorrow would be appropriate.
I come from the land of about 12:30. I get a rumbly in my tummy, and I want to get some lunch. So that was my consideration. But I appreciate it. If that's the determination, I appreciate that, and I would like the special order for purposes of amendment until tomorrow.
Question for the House is a special order HB 425 to the appropriate time tomorrow. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The bill has been special ordered. Report of the Committee on Ways and Means. Report number 5. Clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 35, State Board of Elections, Contracts and Invoices, Requirements. Favor of the amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So much be considered the reading of the amendment.
So ordered.
The amendment strikes many provisions of the bill and adds a provision that codifies that existing cost-sharing agreement for the voting system between the state and the counties. It also requires that there be at least as many polling locations in 2022 as there were in 2018. I move the committee amendments.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendments have been adopted. The question now is the adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill as to its title?
Madam Speaker.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I have an amendment at the desk. Amendment number 993423/1.
Amendment number 1.
This amendment prohibits the State Board of Elections or a local board of elections from petitioning a court to postpone the date of the primary election to any date after July 12, 2022. I move the committee amendment.
Question for the House is the adoption of the committee amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no.
Madam Speaker, I had questions on the amendment.
I will get to you. It's no. The ayes have it. Gentleman from St. Mary's.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Can the floor leader please rise?
Sure.
I just had questions on that amendment. What was that again? What is it doing?
The last amendment?
Yeah.
Sure. What it does is that it prohibits the state or local board of elections from petitioning the courts to move the election day in 2022 to any date later than July 12th, 2022 for the primary.
What is the purpose of that? For what reason?
The purpose of it is because there's so much going on with our courts as we're figuring out redistricting, that for the voters and the sake of having a smooth election this year, that we prevent the election day as much as possible from changing by more than the 2 weeks. That's in the amendment.
Do you feel that this puts any undue burden on the courts? There is a pending case.
That's a great question. This doesn't prevent the courts from acting. This specific amendment is regarding the Board of Elections.
So the courts can act, and then I'm assuming the General Assembly can act as well?
Yes, that's correct.
So it just prevents the Board of Elections from petitioning the court to move the date?
Yes, that's correct.
Wouldn't the Board of Election need the information, or wouldn't the court system need the information from the Board of Election before they just arbitrarily assign the Board of Election to conduct an election on a certain given day?
Nothing prevents the courts from communicating with the Board of Elections.
So this just hand ties the Board of Elections' ability to say, hey, Mr. Court System, we need to go ahead and postpone this to, sometimes beyond July 12th, right?
It prohibits the Board of Elections from petitioning the court from pushing back the election past July 12th.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for your information.
Thank you.
Madam Speaker.
Gentleman from Cole.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I just have a follow-up question on those questions, if I may. So my question is, yes, for the floor leader.
Floor leader.
Thank
the
you,
maker
Madam
of the
Speaker.
amendment. My question is, the election boards, the local and state election boards, certainly the locals are telling me that they will probably need more time to put some of these precincts together, and so why would we hamstring the election boards from taking the appropriate time necessary to be able to draw the precincts?
Thank you for the question, Delegate. I don't think that we are hamstringing at all. Currently, the election date is June 28th, 2022. So all of us, including the State Board of Elections, should be working towards that date. We've all known about this date for a long time. And although there are court proceedings that are taking place, preparations should still be made for that date.
Thank you. On the amendment, Madam Speaker.
On the amendment.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I oppose this amendment, Madam Speaker, for a couple of reasons. The first reason I oppose this amendment is because if we, the legislature, passed fair maps, we wouldn't have court cases. We wouldn't have folks suing the state over the gerrymandered maps. And now what we have is, which is the second reason I oppose this amendment, an amendment in front of us that is nothing more than an incumbent protection amendment. It's really its purpose, because it doesn't recognize the fact that the local governments and the state government, state board of elections, may or may not, depending on what their particular needs are, need to draw new districts. Depending on what the courts do and depending what, of course, we don't know what's going to happen. But what we do know is this: had both parties worked together, we wouldn't be here. We wouldn't be having this amendment on the floor if both parties worked together to draw fair maps for the people of Maryland. That's why we're here. And that's why I oppose this amendment. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Are there
Madam Speaker.
gentlemen from where's he from?
Washington.
Washington, Kansas.
Thank you. Could I ask the floor leader a question on the amendment?
Floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. Just seeing the title on the bill, doesn't the amendment violate the single subject rule?
That's a great question. It does not violate it because we included the contracts and invoices codification provision, and this is all about our elections. So the current bill, as it came in, the original bill, was all about our elections process and cost sharing, and all we did was add in amendments to further clarify our upcoming election.
So generally, I get the connection as far as elections, but I don't believe the amendment has anything to do with contracts, does it?
The original bill had to do with our elections, and these amendments have to do with our upcoming election in 2022.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 203, Homestead Property Tax Credit Program, retroactive qualification and calculation of the credit. Favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill as to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 204, Homeowners Property Tax Credit Application Filing Deadline Extension. Favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill as to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 226, Public Schools Self-Contained Special Education Classroom Use of Video Recording Devices. Favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Madam Speaker.
Recognizing the subcommittee chair.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So much to be considered the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
Amendment number 1 is technical, and amendment number 2 makes the installation of video recording devices in a self-contained special education classroom a pilot program to be installed in 10 public schools. Requires the State Department of Education to evaluate and report on the results of the pilot program and appropriates money for the state to pay for the costs of the pilot program. Move the committee amendments.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendment is adopted. Question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title?
Madam Speaker.
Recognizing the gentleman from Arundel.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I have an amendment at the desk. It's amendment number 443728/1.
Amendment number 1.
Move so much be considered the reading of the amendment.
So ordered.
Ladies and gentlemen, I rise today in support of the bill. I think this is a tremendous step forward. However, I have a constituent who reached out to me with some concerns, and I rise on behalf of them now. The bill, as it was originally introduced, required that cameras go in all self-contained special education classrooms, half next year, and then 100% the year after. The bill was scaled down to create a pilot program where I believe 10 classrooms, I could be wrong about the number, but I think 10 classrooms would move forward. My constituent believes that this is essential to be in all self-contained special education classrooms, and let me tell you why. I had great pleasure in reading someone's name in the newspaper, former Delegate Eric Barron, who's now the U.S. Attorney for our area. There was a report out of Frederick County, Maryland, that the U.S. Attorney's Office for the District Court of Maryland, that they called the largest civil rights investigation in the state. More than 100 students with disabilities were illegally secluded and restrained in Frederick County schools. The investigation revealed more than 7,000 incidents of abuse within the Frederick County public school system, almost entirely on students with disabilities and some as young as 5 years old. Former Delegate Eric Barron said, well over 100 students over the course of the past few years were subject to these practices. So that's one instance. The other thing, in Anne Arundel County a few years back, we had a very concerning case of Bowen Levy, a nonverbal student with autism, who ended up dying in our public school system because they were not getting the care that they were, legally required to have. The school system wasn't taking care of their obligations, and that poor student died. So this amendment just brings this portion of the bill back to the original state where all public school students that have special needs will have this additional protection in the classroom. And I want to thank the committee for their hard work in moving in this very important direction, and I move the amendment. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Recognizing floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I thank the gentleman for sharing the amendment with me before it was considered here. I also thank you for your kind words about students who need protection. I tend to agree with you completely. I will say that the subcommittee worked diligently on this bill to find what is considered to be a balance point. We're looking for evidence, and in doing so, we need to run a healthy pilot. And so, given their hard work, I would ask the body to resist this amendment, please, and go with the subcommittee's hard work. Thank you.
Question. Is he getting up? Question for the House is the adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Roll call.
Madam Speaker.
Clerk will call the roll. The amendment fails. Are there gentlemen from Frederick?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I have a question for the floor leader.
Floor leader.
Good morning. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Good afternoon. Morning. Oh, still morning. Thank you. I'm curious. Two quick questions, actually. First of all, does the bill as drafted include the rights of parents whose children are suspected to have been abused, such as the horrific report that former Delegate Barron has outlined, as my colleague referenced, was exposed in my county? Does it allow parents to view those videos?
Yes. Ultimately, the original people who will view the video would be Child Protective Services, administration, school, larger administration, as well as police.
So you said yes, but I'm reading the bill. It says a member of the school administration may view it, law enforcement, Child Protective Services, a supervisor from the administration of the school, and that's it.
Well, yeah, but you asked the question, would they be able to view it? If you read a little further down in the bill, you'll see that once the complaint is resolved, the parents and the student would have the ability to watch the video.
But not until a complaint is resolved?
That's correct.
So they have to wait until the resolution of a complaint, so they can't even view the video that could help them in administering their complaint?
Well, the point there is that we want these four agencies that you've named who are expert to make a decision based on what they see.
But wouldn't the parent be a stakeholder in that?
And when they make their complaint, they can certainly do that.
But you're saying not until it's all resolved by the identified individuals. So it's kept secret until the end result
No, it's
comes
not a
out.
secret. To be a secret, no one would be allowed to see it. The parents are not allowed to view the video until the complaint is resolved.
Okay, so I have some concerns with that. I think parents are stakeholders. They should be readily involved at the outset. So would you allow a special order for an amendment?
Certainly.
Okay, thank you so much.
Question for the House is to special order HB 226 to the appropriate time tomorrow. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The bill has been special ordered. Are there any additional? No, excuse me. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 384, Public and Non-Public Schools Bronchodilator Availability and Use Policy. Favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Madam Speaker.
Recognizing the subcommittee chair.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. So much be considered the reading of the amendment.
So ordered.
Amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 2 requires that a training must be identified or developed to distinguish between respiratory distress and anaphylaxis to be given to school nurses, thank you, and volunteers, and requires parallel changes to be made in school programs on the administration of epinephrine as well. Move the committee amendments.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendments are adopted. Question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill as to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for a third reading. Gentlemen in the back, are you just standing up or are you? Okay. Just want to make sure. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 428, Election Law for Manufacture of Election Systems, Notification and Termination of Contract. Favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill to its title?
Madam Speaker.
Recognizing the gentleman from Culver.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for recognizing me. I do have a question for the floor leader. How are you?
Floor leader.
Well, how are you?
Good. So this bill appears to be a bill that says that House Bill 428 appears to be a bill that states that you can't purchase election equipment from a foreign country.
It requires the provider of election equipment, if any component of that equipment is manufactured in a foreign country, they must notify the state elections administrator, and any contract must include a clause that requires such notification.
So there still could be equipment purchased from a foreign country and a foreign company, that's a better way of saying it, a non-American company. That still could be the case with this bill?
The provision regarding foreign interests in the company is an existing law. This deals with where components are manufactured.
So explain that again. So you have election equipment, the current election equipment, for example, the equipment is must be purchased from an American company currently?
Current law requires that any contract for election equipment include a provision that requires notification of any foreign ownership in the company.
So it's just a notice of foreign ownership?
Correct.
Oh, okay. Not a requirement that it be made in the United States. And so, is that correct?
Well, you've switched again from ownership to manufacturing. The existing law deals with ownership. This law deals with manufacturing.
Okay, so, but the equipment would have to be certified again? Say that again? I apologize, but it seems kind of circuitous. Not you, just the bill. That's what.
So the bill requires that any contract for election equipment include a provision that if any component of that equipment is manufactured in a foreign country, that notice be provided to the administrator and disclosed so that the state administrator is aware, and it also provides that they can terminate the contract based on that.
And was there testimony from the State Board of Elections that we've had issues with equipment?
There have not been, I do not believe there was testimony about any specific concerns of issues. This is to make sure that we do not expose ourselves to any interference.
And who asked for the bill then?
I'm sorry?
Who asked for the bill then? Was it the State Board of Elections?
It is preventative.
It was a preventative bill, so no one asked for the bill.
It is, I think we can all agree that there is concern about the potential for foreign interference in our elections, and this is a safeguard against that.
Okay, got it. Would you be amenable to me special ordering this bill so I can just take a look at it? Because I do think I need to read it a little bit closer so that I can fully understand it, if that's okay.
I don't have any objection.
I really appreciate it. Move to special order this bill, Madam Speaker, to the appropriate time tomorrow.
Purpose of an amendment?
For the purpose of an amendment. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The question before the House is to special order HB 428 to the appropriate time tomorrow. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The bill has been special ordered. Clerk will read the next bill.
Fossil 495, Education, Student Organized, Peaceful Demonstration, Student Discipline and Policy, favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are
Madam
there
Speaker.
any amendments to the bill or to its title?
Madam Speaker.
Recognizing the gentleman from Baltimore County.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I just had a quick question for the floor leader on this.
Floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Good morning.
Good morning. I kind of forget this bill a little bit from last year, but I guess my question is, are these protest demonstrations, are they on school grounds, or is this kind of like an excused absence if a student goes to like DC to protest for something?
An excused absence would be an entirely different matter between the parent and the administration why they held their child out of school. These would be demonstrations on school property because the school can't actually administer whether or not someone can protest off of school property.
So, like, how does it work if a student, I don't say they want to protest what's going on in Russia and Ukraine? Can they just kind of walk out with a bunch of other students right in the middle of class? Or?
No, if you read the bill, you'll see that this bill does two kinds of protections. It protects schools from having instruction interrupted at the drop of a hat, more or less. It also protects students from being entrapped when they protest. It requires the school systems to come up with their own policy. There are a few guidelines about notification and other types of language use written into the bill.
So you said you don't want to have distraction. So where would they go to protest? And would that not, if say they go to the parking lot, do you not anticipate if it's a large protest that could be a distraction to the surrounding classrooms?
Right, and that would be entirely up to the school system and the administration.
Okay, and you said there was a required amount of time that a student needs to give before they do a
Yes,
protest.
and it's been determined that every student wouldn't have to notify the administration. For example, if the math club wants to protest the number 9, they could let the administration know that they're going to protest that. That would cover all the students in the math club.
Okay, and I guess my last question is there a limit to the amount of protests the students or the groups or whatever could?
Once again, this is a policy that asks each local jurisdiction, each local education affiliate to establish their own policy. And so it gives a great deal of local control in terms of how their tolerance is for these things, as I say, with a few guidelines.
Well, thank you for your answers.
Certainly.
Young lady from Baltimore County.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So we had a situation in my community recently where a large group of students let the administration know that that they would be protesting masks. They let them know in advance, and they called the police. So perhaps the floor leader could rise and let me know if under this bill, those children's protests would be more likely to be permitted and that they would not receive penalty for it.
It's the general thrust of the bill is to allow students better latitude in having demonstrations while at the same time protecting against instruction being interrupted. So students who wanted to protest would let the administration know they wanted to. Depending on the policy within the county, it's likely they would be allowed to in a way that would be less disruptive.
Okay, yeah, they plan to just walk out to stand out in the
And
grass
so that's
for
the
a
exact
period.
the situation you described is exactly what we're trying to avoid, where students get entrapped because they're doing what they think they're allowed to do It provides guidelines for them, it protects them. It provides guidelines for the school to protect instruction.
Okay, I appreciate the answers. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Certainly.
Young lady
Speaker.
from Carroll.
Thank you. So would this allow the school systems to determine which issues can be protested if they have to require it in advance?
No, there's nothing in the bill that says they can do that. Now, I guess they could try, but we didn't eliminate that. All we did was put in certain restrictions that they would put in concerning language and certain subjects that would cause trouble.
So they can protest anything. What if it's something that's very volatile that could cause more disruption by someone else because they're protesting something that we think might not be correct?
It's my belief that the school systems would write a policy that if it was going to cause a disruption to instruction, that the administration could say, yeah, you can't do that at school.
Okay,
Do that
so
somewhere else.
the administration could determine whether or not a certain subject would be able to be disruptive or not, whether the issue that they want to protest about.
There's nothing we have no requirements as far as the school systems go on that policy in this bill.
So could a school system determine that they don't want to have the instruction interrupted and they don't want to have a policy to allow this?
So the bill does start off by saying they have to come up with a policy that allows students to demonstrate.
Ooh, I mean, there's so many situations. I'm not going to get into them all, but I'm reading on page 2. It talks about a public school may not discipline a student for organizing or participating in a student-organized peaceful demonstration if they're notified of the intent to engage in a student-organized peaceful demonstration at least 48 hours ahead, and the student complies with the written policy. But it says if they do not comply with the requirements of that section, the school may not impose a disciplinary action on the student that is greater than the consequence for an unlawful absent student. What is the consequence for an unlawfully absent student?
Like a student who cuts class.
What's the consequence for that?
Well, it depends on the school and their disciplinary policy. It could be a detention, depends what they've done. The point is that you have to follow your disciplinary policy. You can't go beyond it because you're, as an administrator or anyone, upset that they were protesting at the same time.
But it sounds like in here, let's say you get out of hand. I mean, this whole thing about peaceful protest, it's in the eyes of the beholder, as we saw over our country a couple years ago when people kept calling it peaceful protesting, and we were watching buildings being burned and people being killed and police cars being smashed, and some people called it peaceful. I didn't call it peaceful. So it's in the eyes of the beholder sometimes what peaceful means, and sometimes there's a bad actor, and the whole protest might be okay, and then the bad actors are not peaceful. But the way I'm reading this here, it basically says even if they do not follow those guidelines, the most you could do is discipline them no greater than what you would have for an unlawfully absent student. That's
For example,
not having
yes.
a note.
For example, yes. It's, I think that section is put in, I would tell you, because it's to prevent retaliation for further punishment for students who have demonstrated but have made a mistake while doing so. They could still be punished, but only in the way the school would normally punish them. Let's say they leave campus and they're not supposed to. Whatever the punishment for that is should be administered, but not beyond that.
All right, I understand the intention of this, but it seems like there's so many interpretations, and we're thinking in our own minds of what the protest may be,
Right.
but it could be something that is pretty volatile within a school system. It seems like to me this is opening up a can of worms in a school where kids are supposed to be learning. And I'm concerned about the fact that they don't have any tools to really discipline if somebody gets out of hand and it becomes something more violent, that they really don't have many tools except the same tool as if you don't have a note coming back to school.
So all of your concerns go to local control, and that's what we're administering here. We are giving school systems within a few guardrails local control to help make those
And
decisions.
I agree with local control, but at the very beginning you said that they still have to allow for this.
Yes, that's
So
what this is set up to do.
that's not local control to me.
Provide us a policy that tells students how to demonstrate.
I gotcha. I understand. And thank you very much.
Gentleman from Baltimore County.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Two questions for the floor leader, if I can, please.
Floor leader.
Thank you, and good morning.
Thank you,
The first question I have is, does this bill protect against retaliation of the students? And I'll give you an example. In Dundalk, we had two high schools, Patapsco and Dundalk High School, where the students were protesting. There was sexual abuse at the school, and students just walked out and protested, some on school grounds, some out off of school grounds. And the students had used the first period. It was kind of a float period where they talked to other students, the first period teacher, administrators, and they kind of used that time to plan their day. And what happened was that in response, the school actually cut that period. So while this bill specifies that a student may not be disciplined, it does not, at least anywhere that I read, specify that a student or students may not be retaliated against. So my first question is, does this bill prevent a school system or administration from retaliating against one or more students for staging a peaceful protest?
You've used a different word for it, but it's the same thing that's in that section. You're not allowed to retaliate as an administrator against a student beyond what you would normally punish them for.
And it uses the word retaliation?
No, the bill doesn't. You've used it, and you've picked a different word, but the section takes care of that.
Okay. Here's my second question. If I went to students in Dundalk who were flaming mad about a lack of action from administration on sexual abuse within the school, and I told them that they're going to have to notify the school system at least 2 days in advance that they were going to launch a protest, one of them would probably run against me. Do you think it's in the spirit of the First Amendment that we have to put a law in place that requires students to give notice to a school system to protest? Do you think that's in the spirit of First Amendment?
Well, the First Amendment doesn't actually fully apply here, but yes, I do.
Okay. Madam Speaker, I'd like to look at this and maybe get a small amendment just for some technical clarification. Would it be okay if I just special order this until the appropriate time tomorrow?
Will you share the amendment with me,
Yes,
please?
absolutely.
Sure.
Thank you so much.
Question for the House is to special order HB 495 until the appropriate time tomorrow. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Bill has been special ordered. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 515, Education Student Athletes Uniform Modifications for Modesty Inclusive Athletic Attire Act. Favor of the amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much be considered the reading of the amendment.
So ordered.
Amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 2 allows student athletes to modify athletic uniforms to conform with the student's own preference for modesty. Move the amendment.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? No. The ayes have it. Amendments have been adopted. The question now is the adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? No. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. The gentleman from Prince George's County.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Will the floor leader just rise? The
Good morning.
purpose. All right, good to see you. Good morning. I'm just reading through the bill. So as I read the bill, I guess the purpose is, you don't want religious freedoms to be obstructed. So I've seen a lot of student athletes want to wear leggings underneath their uniform, and fencers, folks want to wear different uniforms. So the problem I'm seeing, or it's a question, how do you identify where it says a student athlete may not be required to receive approval from a coach, teacher, school administrator, or the county board before making the uniform modification? I mean, so normally when you talk about sports and team sports, you want to go out there, it's a uniform act, uniformity. So with this provision here, would this allow somebody to say, if you wanted to put a Satan logo on your helmet, and you don't have to let the coach know, and you can run out on the field and do that, or you can put it on your jersey?
Thank you for the questions. No, the bill would not allow that. In fact, students would still be subject to all of the rules and regulations that their team, their school, and the league that they play in set for uniforms. And in fact, there are overarching bodies that set those rules. So at the collegiate level, it's the NCAA. At the high school level, it's the National Federation of State High School Associations. And they have very detailed rules about what's allowed for uniforms, actually including for the kinds of modifications that are talked about in this bill. So if a student wants to wear, say, a t-shirt underneath their jersey or shorts underneath their uniform shorts, those sports entities, organizations actually do set rules for that they need to be a solid color, only certain colors are allowed, there's rules about visible logos, etc.
Sure, I understand that. But that's why when I'm reading this over and over again, I kept seeing the different codes. A student athlete may not be required to receive approval from a coach, a teacher, an administrator, a county board before making the uniform modification. So if I'm reading that right, if I'm the student, I don't need to notify my coach. I don't need to let the school board know if I'm not required to get the approval. So I'm just wondering, did y'all consider about, hey, this should be, you should give notification to the coach or to the appropriate board that this is what I'm going to do.
So I don't believe that particular point came up as a point of discussion in subcommittee, but in general, students who are making these modifications for religious, cultural, or modesty preferences are still subject to the rules. If their coach or their team or a ref thinks whatever the modification they've done is not in keeping with the uniform rules for their league, they could object and keep the student from playing in a game.
No, sure, Delegate, and I understand that. I'm for what this bill is about. I'm just trying to say the way that you implemented it by allowing the student to go out there without seeking permission. It could be something, on game day, you go out there and it's completely against what should happen. The student can say, well, no, this is my right to do it. Where I just think they should be required to get approval first before they do it. That's all. And it says it over and over again in all the different sections, from community college to higher ed. So I just wondered if y'all considered that, or if maybe you think it's a good idea.
Well, I guess another way of me describing kind of what the current situation is that's actually what the current situation is. And we've run into issues where students who have chosen to wear religious head covering, say, were actually kept out of games, even though they had sought the prior modification. We heard testimony from a student actually from my county who was kept out of playing in a tournament, I believe it was a basketball game, because she was wearing a hijab. She actually had a waiver. She did not have a copy of the actual waiver letter with her, and the ref would not let her play in the game. So that's why the bill does not include the requirement to seek permission beforehand.
With you 100%, and I think the intent of the bill is going in the right direction. It's good. I'm just saying, so that situation you talked about, so now with this, if this bill passes as written, then the student can just show up and do it and say, hey, I didn't need approval from anybody to do this.
If the student shows up in a uniform that has been modified in an unauthorized way, the coach or the ref would not allow them to play. The coach or the referee would not allow them to play.
Current.
And
law.
under the bill.
Current, but even under this bill?
Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry, I'm just a former student athlete. I'm just trying to understand how that can be the case when I'm reading here, may not be required to receive approval. And it goes back to the student athlete that was in your district that you said, they didn't have the requirements out there, she didn't have the letter, that would not allow to participate. That's wrong. But I think, the coming to the minds needs to be, it should be a mutually agreed upon prior to the event or the practice, whatever may take place.
Delegate, I see your point. I'll just say that if you look at the bill, there is a very limited list of modifications that are allowed to the uniform. Wearing of an undershirt or leggings or a religious head covering is what's called out in the legislation. So the example that you gave, again, is not encompassed in the bill.
That's the intent. I just think it should be pre-approved, but thank you for answering my questions.
Speaker.
The gentleman from, where are you from?
Queen Anne.
Queen Anne.
With the floor, to rise for a quick question.
Certainly.
On that, what the delegate was just saying is that if my son or daughter decided to change their uniform and go play, and they walk out on the, let's say basketball, on the court, so that means that at that point that coach or whomever can tell them they can't play that day?
That's right.
Don't you think this needs to be fixed? Because I would think it would be important to the student and the team if they were the star athlete and they made this change randomly and it didn't suit the coach or whomever, that would seriously damage the team's chances that day.
Well, my understanding is in cases where this has happened in the past, the student has been given the opportunity to change their uniform and to change what they are wearing. Now, the testimony that the committee heard was in cases of where students were wearing additional clothing or a religious head covering for religious or cultural purposes, and so the student did not change and therefore was kept out of the game. But, if we're talking about an instance where it's not of someone's faith and they say wear a undershirt underneath their jersey that is not a solid color, because under these different associations rules, you do need to wear, say, a solid color undershirt.
But
and let's say they're wearing a polka dot shirt. Their coach or ref could say that's not allowed. The student could go change and then go play the game.
But
Take off the undershirt.
if it was important to the student, if this was a very significant change or something very important to them, that they felt they couldn't do that and they refused to do that, they're out of the game because they did not get permission.
Again, if it's for a religious or cultural reason or for the student's own sense of modesty, that's what this bill is getting at. For students who are choosing to wear something else or make a different modification, the bill does not cover them. They are subject to the rules of their league in terms of what uniform they're required to wear.
I think it's a flaw with the bill, but thank you for answering the questions. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read next bill.
House Bill 730, Economic Development, Maryland Innovation Initiative Program, qualifying donations, favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read next bill.
House Bill 769, Student Data Privacy Protections, Digital Tools, and Student Data Privacy Council. Favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leaders.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So much to be considered the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
Amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 2 removes a requirement that each county board of education must list digital tools used by students each year, and MSDE must publish a database of those tools. I move the amendments, Madam Speaker.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendments have been adopted. The question now is the adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? The gentleman from Culvert.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Culvert, I like that. So I have a question for the floor leader, please.
Floor leader.
Good morning.
Good morning. What does the second amendment do?
It removes a requirement that each county board of education must list digital tools used by students each year, and that MSDE must publish a database of those tools.
The second amendment, that's what can you reread that? Because it was hard to hear initially with the.
Okay, here we go. Amendment number 2 removes a requirement that each county board of education must list digital tools used by students each year, and that MSDE must publish a database of those tools.
It removes the requirement that the county boards and MSDE has to do what again?
Must publish a database of those tools.
And why would that be?
This bill is updating an existing law. And we're trying to stay current with changes in the technology in order to protect student data. I also would like to mention that this was voted out of the committee unanimously.
No, understood. I understood. I just wanted to, and what was the third amendment? I think there was there
There
a third?
isn't a third amendment.
And the first amendment did what?
Technical.
Got it. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
No problem.
Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read next bill.
House Bill 791, Sales and Use Tax, Digital Product Definition, favorable.
The question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Recognize the gentleman from Baltimore County.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I have a brief question for the floor leader, please.
Yes, sir.
Thank
Good
you.
morning.
Good morning.
Almost afternoon.
So this alters the definitions. What we're doing in this bill is we're adding definitions of what is not taxed. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Thank you.
Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read next bill.
House Bill 809, Property Tax Exemption, Disabled Veteran, Active Duty, and Surviving Spouse, Application Process, favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So much be considered the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
The amendments are clarifying. Move the amendments.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendments are adopted. The question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading.
I got it.
Introduction of House Bill during the last 35 days of session. Clerk will read the bill. Excuse me.
I think she has to explain it, right? Yeah. Go ahead, bro.
Madam Speaker.
Recognizing the maker of the bill.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and colleagues. I apologize for the late introduction, and usually we blame the Senate, but this time I blame Vladimir Putin.
Shall the bill be introduced? It requires 94 votes. Clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? So the clerk will take the call. There will be 135 votes in the affirmative. The bill will be introduced.
Madam Speaker.
Recognize,
House Bill 1482, Delegate Learman.
recognizing the sponsor of the bill.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'd like to move to suspend the rules to allow the bill to be referred to the Appropriations Committee.
The question before the House is to refer HB 1482 to the Appropriations Committee. Clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? Clerk will take the call. The bill having 135 votes in the affirmative, the bill will refer to the Appropriations Committee. The bill will read the bill on the committee assignment.
House Bill 1482, Delegate Learman, Appropriations.
Introduction of House bill during the last 35 days of session.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Recognizing the sponsor of the bill.
I'd
Why
like
are you late?
I'd like to beg the indulgence of the House on this. I was thinking about good excuses, and the best one I could come up with was that it was the gentleman to my right's fault. But I'm not going to fib about it. It was mine. I wasn't feeling well on Friday, and I was at home, and I didn't get a chance to put it in until this morning, at the request of my assistant sheriff and state's attorney.
Okay.
So I'd like to urge a green vote on this.
Okay. Shall the bill be introduced? Requires 95 votes. Clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded the vote? If so, the clerk will take the call. There'll be 133 votes in the affirmative. The bill will be introduced. The clerk will read the bill and the committee assignment.
House Bill 1483, Delegate Clark, House Rules.
That's what you've been waiting to hear. That ends the work at the desk. Committee announcements, appropriations.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. We will have a full appropriations meeting today to continue public bill hearings at 1 p.m.
Judiciary.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, the House Judiciary Committee will be meeting at 1:15 for bill hearings.
Environment and Transportation.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The Environment and Transportation Committee will continue public hearings at 1 p.m.
Ways and Means.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The Ways and Means Committee will resume public bill hearings at 1 p.m. today.
Economic Matters.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Economic Matters will be continuing its public bill hearings at 1 p.m. with a Public Utilities Subcommittee at 3 p.m.
Health and Government Operations.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. That committee will begin our public hearing at the usual time of 1:30 p.m. today.
Okay. Is there any caucus meetings? Okay. Roles?
Women's Caucus.
Women's Caucus. Okay.
We'll have a regular meeting tomorrow morning at 8:45. The election of officers has been scheduled for next week, the 16th, but we will still have our regular meeting tomorrow morning at 8:45 on Zoom.
Any other caucus meetings? Okay. Quorum call before adjournment.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their presence? Clerk will take the call. There being 133 members present, the House is still in session. The prayer recognizes the majority leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move that the House stand adjourned until Wednesday, March 9th at 10 a.m., Legislative Day, March 3rd.